Tesla has been on a big run the last few months. It's up 115% so far in 2023, and our next guest is one of Tesla's biggest shareholders. Joining us right now in an exclusive interview is Ron Barron. He's the chairman and CEO of Barron Capital. You got into this back in 2014, right? 2014 was your first purchase of Tesla?
So I met him in 2010.
Yeah.
And when I was interviewing, and I say we invest in people, bet on people. And when he was at our annual meeting last year and I was interviewing him, he says, well, it took you quite a while to invest in me. It was 4 years, actually. So in 2010, I met him, followed it. 2014, after the stock had gone up, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 times, 6 times. At that point, we started investing. And we invested.
Why? What finally dragged you in?
こんにちは。テスラ全力チャンネルの太一です。今回はテスラに継続的に投資し続けることで総資産40億ドル以上に増やしてきたロンバロン氏の今後のテスラに対する将来展望についてご紹介しようと思います。その中で私が作ったテスラの事業成長モデルと将来の株価予想との違いについても解説しますので、この動画を見ることでテスラの将来性をより高い解像度で理解できるようになると思います。ロンバロンは2010年にナスダック市場に上場した当時からテスラに注目をし続けてきましたが、テスラ株は当時、公開価格17ドルを 41% も上回る23ドル89セントの初値をつけて上場した後、一時は 30% 以上も下落しました。こうした大きな変動を伴う上場初期に、ロンバロン氏が日本円にして500億円近い金額をテスラに投じた理由はどこにあったのでしょうか。
Well, I kept following and kept going to visit him, and finally he was telling me, gee, we're going to grow 50% a year in units as far as the eye can see. And he was doing 31,000 cars a year then, 31,000 cars. And ultimately, we had this meeting for a couple hours in Fremont, and I walked away with Mike Lippert, and I said, man, I can't believe I don't own this yet. Stock was $80 on the way to 200, up from 25 where it came public. And
上場後、たった数年で株価は80倍近くなったテスラの原動力は何よりも EV の生産革命にあったと思います。そもそも当時は電気自動車などはまだまだ先の未来の乗り物で、しかもそれを大量に製造、販売して商業的に成功することなど、大手の自動車メーカーの立て続けの失敗などによって誰もができないと考えていました。ロンバロンはこうした人々の常識を疑って、当時は現在の生産台数の60分の1の規模ではありましたが、年間 50% 成長という高い目標を着実に達成しているテスラの将来性を正確に見抜いていたわけです。そしてテスラの高い成長目標は今も健在なんですが、その一方でニュースキャスターのベッキー・クイックは現在のテスラ株のボラティリティの高さについてこのように質問しました。
You rode that all the way up.Yep. We're in it all the way down, but then back up again, which is what we've seen this year.
We're not quite all the way down. So we invested $380 million, and we made about $4 billion so far.
Wow.
And we've cashed in about $1.5 billion. We sold for clients 6.8 million shares. Yeah. Three years ago at $225 a share, up 15 or 20 times.
ロンバロンはテスラに4億ドル投資して、それを40億ドル以上に増やしてきましたが、冒頭でも解説したように、その道のりは順調なものではありませんでした。今、テスラに投資をしている人にとって、2022年の下落は確かに大きなものでしたが、一般的にファンダメンタルズに期待が持てる銘柄というものは、往々にして注目度が高い分、短期視点での投資家が多く参入する傾向にあります。ちなみにテスラ株は1年間で 30% 以上の下落を今回含めて過去3回も経験していますが、その1年後の平均上昇率は 141% と株価でいうと 2.4 倍にもなっています。これは結果論とも取れますが、良好な業績が続く限り、短期投資家が誤った期待で失望して市場から撤退してくれた後は大きな上昇が期待できるということは統計的にも証明されているのです。
And we now have 17.5 million shares, and I think we're going to make 6 or 7 times. I think the stock is now 225, 230, 250. I think it's going to be 500 in 2025, and I think in 2030 it's going to be 1,500. That's my targets.
これは少し控えめな予想だと思いますが、 ロンバロンらしい保守的で堅実な目標株価だと思います。この7年間で目標株価が現在の7、8倍である1500ドルという数字は、私のバリエーションモデルにおける EV 事業の収支だけで計算された株価と一致します。EV 事業における不確実性はそこまで高くないので、ある程度一致するのは当然なんですが、私の見通しとの違いは、テスラは EV 事業だけでは正確な株価を予想できないと考えている点です。具体的には EV 以外の事業、エネルギー事業とか AI 事業も含めると、ざっと見積もっても予想株価はロンバロン氏が見積もった1500ドルの3倍程度になると思います。
I think when you sold because you were worried that it was becoming such a huge part of your portfolio. It had risen so much, and I think at the time you told us you wanted to, it was part of your mandate as your funds. You couldn't have one stock be such a big part of your portfolio.
I wanted people to know that I hadn't died. And, that's why they still own the stock. So I just, and I was getting criticized for being such a large holding. And I don't normally buy stocks. I haven't really since 1992. I've been investing in our funds. But I am allowed to buy private companies, and I have a big investment in SpaceX. But in Tesla, I own personally 5 million shares. I bought it after all of my clients had bought their stock. And I said to the board of our mutual funds, I said, look, I'm not going to buy stock for myself any longer. I'm only going to invest in our funds and in private deals. But in this instance, I think we're going to make 20 times our money. I'd like to invest $50 million. And if it works out, then Barron Capital will be stronger financially. And if it doesn't, I can afford to lose. It wouldn't be pleasant, but I will take the chance. And I said that if you approve this, I'm the last person to buy. I'm not taking anyone's opportunity. I tried to get everyone else to buy, and I wasn't that successful. I'm the last one to buy, and I will be the last one to sell. I will not sell a single share for myself until I sell for all my clients. Last in, last out. Okay. And so I bought for the clients. We sold about a quarter of their stock.
通常、ファンドの運営者は顧客の資金を運用しながら自分の資金で個別株を別途売買する場合、利益相反にならないように細心の注意を払います。ロンバロンもテスラ株を顧客より安く買って高く売るということがないように、顧客よりも前に売ったり買ったりすることはない。売買をする際には事前に通告をした上で行うと話しています。そもそもファンドを運用しているオーナーであるにもかかわらず、個人で個別銘柄に投資する場合は、金融当局への様々な届け出も含めて、時間的にも資金的にも大きな制約があるので、実際に行うことは非常に難しいのです。裏を返せばそこまでしてテスラ株に投資したいという気持ちと業績に対する絶対的な自信の表れでもあると思います。
It's now $4.5 billion, your holdings in Tesla. That's more than 10%. If you've got $41 billion in assets under management, it's now more than 10% of your funds. Does that get you back to the point where you start to worry it's too big again? Would you sell again for your clients so you're not too beholden to one stock in your funds?
It's a little bit less than 10. I think that no, it's not anywhere near. I've been very careful about explaining to people about the funds that do own this stock and the clients. And clients periodically call up and they say, it's a little bit too much for me. Can you sell a little bit? Whatever they ask, I'll do. And I told them, I think that you're going to make from these levels a double in the next 3 years, and you're going to make after that, you're going to make to a triple again. So you can. I think you're going to make 7 times your money over the next 7 or 8 years.
現在ロンバロン氏が運用しているバロンファンドはこのようにテスラ株を筆頭にして厳正に選ばれた少数精鋭の銘柄で構成されています。テスラ株については直近3ヶ月間でも追加で数百万株を購入していて、現在の保有数量は1200万株以上で時価総額は25億ドルですので、ベッキーが言う 10% どころか全体の 42% を占めています。昨年は一時100億ドルに迫る勢いのバロンファンドにおいて、全体の4割を占めるテスラ株の今後についてロンバロン氏はどのように評価しているのでしょうか。
So curious if you'd explain what your thoughts were on this opening up of the charging stations that Tesla is doing. It's such a remarkable thing, and I think great for the country. Should be good for Tesla, but could cut both ways in that it's also creating opportunity for Ford and General Motors.
It's not that big a deal economically for Tesla. but it's going to make more charging stations available, so people will be less worried about buying an electric car, thinking that they will be able to charge it wherever they go. Most people charge their cars at home at night, so I don't think it's that big a deal. But it will. There's 4,500 stations right now, and 45,000 chargers, plugs. This is better technology. It's faster technology. It's going to make people. His whole idea is to transform our country and the world to electrification, to electric cars, and this is helpful.
最近テスラの売買推奨を引き下げた投資銀行が今回の充電網の他社への開放を高く評価している一方で、テスラの長期強気投資家であるロンバロン氏はこのニュースをそこまで高く評価していません。あくまで現実的に EV の販売事業のみを評価するだけで、ロボタクシーですとか FSD というまだ実現していない未来の事業に対する販売収益をそこまで楽観的に捉えていないということから、相当保守的な前提で計算していることがわかります。私はテスラの売上、ひいて言うと販売台数が伸びる背景には FSD の精度改善とそれによるロボタクシーの実現、これが世界中の人々のテスラ車への需要の喚起につながるということを根拠にしています。こうした期待値抜きでロンバロン氏が7年間で株価が7倍も成長するという根拠はどこにあるのでしょうか。
What's really interesting as well is that most people would perceive Tesla as a rich man's toy, as a car that's very expensive. The average car in the United States is now $48,000 a car. $48,000 a car. Last year, Tesla cars were $50,000 without a subsidy. This year, they're $40,000 with a $7,500 subsidy, and therefore, they're $33,000. $33,000 you can buy a Tesla where you're buying a regular, and that's like a BMW, better than a BMW 3. And so the Tesla Y is the biggest selling car in the whole world. The Tesla Model 3 is $33,000. And you compare it to any car. This is not a Toyota Corolla or a BYD. This is a Tesla. And when you're buying this car, you get an amazing value. So it's absurdly cheap. $33,000 for a car. And people don't realize how cheap it is.
つまり、ロンバロン氏はテスラを時系列的に見比べた上で、3年前に比べて株価が変わっていないにもかかわらず、売上が3倍にも成長していて、今後さらに売上が加速する要素としては、ASP、平均販売単価の低下によって、今以上に大衆化が進んで、世界で最も売れる車になるということを裏付けとしているわけです。今回のインタビューの中では語られていませんが、早ければ来年発表されて再来年から納車される予定の廉価版モデルの売り上げでテスラのこうしたトレンドが確立されてさらなる飛躍が期待できることは間違いないと思います。そしてこうした銘柄単位での競争優位性に加えて市場環境については次のように解説しています。
So the idea is there's only 6% of cars that are now electric, and so there's 94% that aren't. There's also a 2 billion car fleet. 1% is electrified. So there's a really big opportunity for growth.
業績としての売上要因と市場要因に加えて、利益率の高さについては次のようにテスラの投資効率を高く評価しています。
So most companies, when they make an investment, they make a 15% return on capital. That's target. They won't make an investment unless they can make 15% return on equity on the investment, on capital. Tesla, when they were making a profit of $15,000 a car, they built a plant for 1 million cars, and it cost $7 billion. And that plant would make $15,000 in profit a car. They're making $15 billion on a $7 billion investment.
ここで私は別の切り口でギガ上海を例にテスラの投資効率を改めて評価してみようと思います。ギガ上海の建設費用は50億ドルでこれを投資金額とみなします。ギガ上海で今年生産される EV は100万台で1台あたり5万ドルで売り出されて利益率を 25% とすると年間で生み出される利益は125億ドルとなります。そのため最初に行った50億ドルの設備投資で毎年125億ドルの利益を生み出している計算となりますから、投資収益率 ROI は 250% となります。テスラに1ドルを投資したら毎年 2.5 ドルの付加価値が生まれるという計算です。GM やフォードなどのレガシーメーカーの非効率さは以前の動画でも解説した通りなんですが、 競合他社と比べるまでもなく、テスラの利益体質、投資効率性は米国の全上場企業と比べても折り紙付きなのです。こうした計算はテスラの IR 資料のグラフを見ても一目瞭然です。テスラの利益率の高さは、こうしたギガファクトリーを世界中で建設して、それぞれの工場で同様の期待ができることに裏付けられています。またテスラは中国に次ぐ経済大国にも目を向け始めています。インド進出についてはテスラ単体での評価というより、インドという国そのものの成長戦略と合わせて評価していく必要があります。
Well, Tesla is looking to make a significant investment in India. CEO Elon Musk saying the company plans to do, in his words, what's humanly possible to establish a manufacturing presence there. This coming after he met with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Tesla is just the latest American company looking to expand its footprint in the country, and Modi is looking to capitalize on that interest as he begins his state visit here in the U.S. Let's bring in Rick Rosso. He's the chair of U.S.-India Policy Studies at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Good to talk to you today. You know, this is really turning out to be a bit of a tricky tightrope for the Biden administration. On the one hand, there's a lot of enthusiasm for business investments potential in India, and yet there's questions about their human rights record. What do you think the Biden administration is trying to accomplish on this visit?
Well, there's a couple of significant reasons to really try to build this relationship and underscoring that with a state visit. First and foremost, we see a more aggressive China in terms of security interests in the Indo-Pacific. India shares a lot of our interest in trying to make sure that we offset some of the more dangerous elements of China's rise. Although, the United States is more concerned about the Pacific theater and that threat, India is more concerned about its own neighborhood. Second, the economy. India has surpassed China as the world's most populous nation, 10 years consecutive of averaging 6% growth now. That's a pretty good track record. So when we think about high growth markets for U.S. investment and trade, India is going to be central to global growth. India also wants, of course, access to the U.S. market. So the size of the economy, the potential for the security relationship comes together nicely, I think, to tee up it's expected to be a pretty significant visit this week.
インドのこうした国家戦略のもと、テスラの得意領域とインド政府が期待している成長分野から、テスラがインドで今後進むべき道が見えてきます。
We just mentioned Tesla, Elon Musk talking about potential opportunities in India. Obviously, Apple, another one. We've heard many companies talk about this potential, especially as they try to reduce their exposure to China. We have heard about the opportunity in India for many, many years now. Is this time around different? Do you get the sense that India has the infrastructure, has the regulation in place to allow for this big push to bring in more multinational companies?
I wouldn't say the government of India has necessarily been running to position itself as the next best option. There isn't, frankly, a lot of deregulation that the Modi government would necessarily need to do. A lot of that lies with state governments, and there where you don't see quite as much action as what would precipitate, I think, a major wave of U.S. investment. So you've got a couple of great one-offs, most of which you just mentioned. But if you look at India's own numbers on foreign direct investment coming into the country, it's actually dropped by about 20% in the last 12 months versus the 12 months prior to that. So you're not really seeing the numbers showing a groundswell of investment, but gosh, when the big telecom suppliers and others do start making announcements, maybe this is kind of the first wave, but I think we'll have to check in another year or two and see if the numbers kind of prove that it's more than just a few very visible one-offs, and there actually is a groundswell of U.S. companies making those big investments. Right now, the data doesn't show it's happening.
このようにインド政府としては海外の民間企業に対してこれからの国内経済の発展に必要なインフラ投資を期待している一方で、テスラは現在世界中で急ピッチで進んでいるメガパックの販売を通じたエネルギーインフラの構築を得意としています。今回のイーロン・マスクの発言でも EV 事業だけではなくてエネルギー分野でのインド経済への発展に貢献するという趣旨もあって、アメリカのラスロップ工場、中国の上海に次ぐ第3のメガファクトリー建設も期待できるわけです。
Morgan Stanley, Adam Jonas, yesterday. He's been a big bull on this stock for a long time. He downgraded it because he said the price is just too high at this point. Still likes the company, but just says it's run pretty far, pretty fast.
Adam's clients are hedge funds. And basically, we sold our, so it's unusual that the stock went down the day before.
Wait, are you suggesting the hedge fund clients had that information the day before?
No, I have no idea. But you're talking to someone all the time who has an opinion, analysts, and And he's trying to generate brokerage commissions. I'm trying to be a long-term investor. Long-term investing, that's what we're about.
モルガン・スタンレーが顧客に事前にレポート内容を漏らしていたかどうかはさておいて、このレポートの中で長期で強気予想であるにもかかわらず、短期視点で売買推奨の格下げをしなくてはならないという矛盾は少なからずあったと思います。セルサイドのモルガン・スタンレーが資金を運用しているバイサイド向けに売買手数料目的でのレポートを出すことは当然なので、前回のライブでも解説したように、こうした事実とレポートの詳細を読んだ上で、アナリストの真意に気づいて、今回の下げが短期で終わる可能性も含めて、今後下落する場面では確実に押し目を拾っていくべきだと思っています。
When the stock goes down like it did last year, you don't worry because you figure eventually it's going to right size again?
The most amazing, I was not worried. But for clients, the stock went from 300 to 100.
Yeah.
It's now 225, but 250. It's the same price it was 3 years ago, and the business is 3 times bigger. The business is 3 times bigger now. Now they're going to do 2 million cars this year. 3 years ago, they were doing 500,000 cars when I sold our 6.8 million shares. So basically, it's the same price it was 3 years ago when the business is now 3 times bigger. And so a guy could say, I have no idea if it's going to be higher or lower in the short term.
ロンバロンが運用するバロンファンドは2014年からテスラ株に数億ドルの投資をして、その後10倍以上のリターンを稼いできたわけですが、現在のファンド規模は昨年ピーク時には100億ドルにも迫る勢いで伸びています。そんな巨大ファンドにおいて全体の4割を占めるテスラ株に対しては、ロンバロン自身絶大な信頼を置いていて、AI ですとか FSD、ロボタクシーなどの現在実現されていない事業は評価せずに、あくまで主力事業である EV 販売事業のみ保守的に見積もるというスタイルで、今後さらに7年間で7倍もの成長が見込まれると教えてくれました。そしてその予測根拠である EV 事業の評価については、圧倒的な製造コストの圧縮で販売単価を抑えることで今以上に大衆化が進むという点に加えて、外部環境として今後の EV 市場の拡大が追い風になると評価しているわけです。こうした市場拡大の恩恵のもと、さらにインド市場が開放されれば、エネルギーインフラ投資という点においてテスラにとっても追加で大きな成長機会になる可能性もあります。その場合、ロンバロンが言う7倍の予想株価1500ドルはさらに大きく見積もられるかもしれません。今回の内容は以上です。もし動画の内容が良ければ、グッドボタン、フォロー、通知ボタンをオンにしていただけると嬉しいです。それではまた次回の動画でお会いしましょう。バイバイ。